Welcome to CTV News Trendline with Michael Stittle and Nick Nanos.
Nick, good to see you again. How was your summer?
It's great. Couple of mini trips. Went to Niagara-on-the-Lake, Prince Edward County, the Maritimes. Canada's a great place to hang out during the summertime.
Where are you now? You got a different background there.
Yeah, because Vancouver. It's a little rainy
Beautiful.
today, but hey, it is what it is.
Well, Nick, let's get right to it. Over the summer, we've seen Pierre Poilievre's Conservatives. I think they've been leading Justin Trudeau's Liberals. And what do you have for the latest ballot tracking?
Well, the Nanos tracking, it's been a roller coaster ride, Michael, over the last few months. But that roller coaster has been in favor of Pierre Poilievre. The latest Nanos tracking have the Conservatives 6 points up. They're at 35, followed by the Liberals at 29. NDP at 22. You know what, Michael? The New Democrats at 22 is actually a pretty good number, because if they start creeping into the mid-20s, that is big trouble for Justin Trudeau and the Liberals right now. So right now, the Conservatives continue to enjoy an advantage. It was a little higher earlier in the summer at around 9% in the Nanos tracking, but still 6 points is enough to win an election.
Wow. I just for the NDP again, Nick, that's is that a long-term trend? I mean, how long have they been trending upwards like that?
Well, the thing is, when the Liberal numbers go down, usually the NDP numbers go up. Maybe if you're Justin Trudeau and the Liberals, you got to be hoping those NDP numbers are hidden Liberal numbers that might come out and vote for the red team in order to try to strategically vote and block Pierre Poilievre. But you know what? If you're Jagmeet Singh, you have to be thinking about how can you get that number, that 22 to 25, because then you're back into, Tom Mulcair and Jack Layton territory, and it could be a massive game changer if the NDP can up their numbers even more.
What about preferred prime minister? How are the party leaders doing there?
What's interesting is that usually whoever is the prime minister has an advantage because they sit in the chair. Right now, we have Pierre Poilievre. 31% of Canadians prefer him as prime minister, 6 points ahead, similar to the ballot numbers, as Justin Trudeau's at 25, Jagmeet Singh at 17. But the interesting thing here, Michael, is that when you look at the longer term trend, a Conservative leader has not been this high since Stephen Harper was prime minister. So, you know what? Right now, the Conservatives are very well poised. The other thing is when the leader of the opposition is ahead of the sitting prime minister, that's also not good news for the sitting prime minister, and it's very good. These numbers are quite good for Pierre Poilievre.
Nick, what's your main takeaway from all this?
Well, for some Canadians, this might be a surprise. They might be clutching their chest. We should be thinking of the words Pierre Poilievre, prime minister. The Conservatives are up 6 points. He's 6 points up on the preferred prime minister tracking. The Liberals are back on their heels. They have to think of what they have to do to try to change this trend line, because right now in the Nanos tracking, the Conservatives have the upper hand.
Nick, one of the major political issues right now in the House, as the House has returned, is Canada's housing crisis. And this comes as Canada is trying to welcome 465,000 permanent residents. You've done a survey on all this for the Globe and Mail. What did you find out?
What's interesting, Michael, in our weekly tracking on issues, housing has been up there at the top, like the cost of living and inflation and stuff like that, because many Canadians are just struggling to pay for the rent or the mortgage in the next 30 days. But what's interesting is that we're also doing polling, as you mentioned, on immigration. We ask Canadians whether they think we should be bringing in more new immigrants, less, or the same amount. And, when you look at the trend line, you look at 2020 compared to 2023, check it out. The proportion of Canadians that thought we should be bringing in even more new Canadians was 17% back in 2020. That's down to 8. The same is about the same, 36, 34, but less. In 2020, about 40% of Canadians thought that we should be bringing in less Canadians. It is now a majority, slim majority, but still a majority, nonetheless, at 53%. So right now, what it seems is we're seeing the collision, intersection, whatever you want to call it, Michael, of issues like housing, where people are really worried about the rising cost of housing and just housing affordability writ large, and things like immigration. Canadians traditionally are not opposed to immigration. We're a country where many people, almost everybody, came from another place. But the thing is that people figure out where they're going to live. There's already pressure on the housing market right now, and the reality is that bringing in, 2, 3, 4, 500,000 Canadians or new people plus foreign students just puts pressure on the whole market.
Nick, how do you see this playing out in the political fight between the Liberals and the Conservatives right now?
I think, well, the Liberals are probably going to stand up and say we need these new individuals to come into the economy to keep things going because the unemployment rate's so low. Probably what the Conservatives are going to do is say, you know what, maybe it's the right idea, but the plan, there is no plan, and that the federal government needs to really work with provincial and municipal governments in order to ensure that when we bring new individuals into Canada, that we actually have a place for them to live, and it does not create a housing hardship for average Canadians.
Nick, we're going to take a quick break, but when we come back, we'll track the economic mood of Canadians. Nick, we've had a cost of living crisis simmering in Canada for a while now, and I'm wondering how Canadians feel about the economic future.
Not that great, Michael. People are much more likely to think that the economy will be weaker than stronger in the next 6 months. But when we look at the trend line, we have a trend line with Bloomberg News where we track every week consumer confidence. It's been tepid, or why don't we just call it maybe a limp handshake? Anyways, it hasn't been that great over the last while, just marginally positive. What we're seeing now in the last number of weeks is consumer confidence start a negative trajectory. That's bad news because the Bloomberg tracking shows us where GDP will be in 3, 4, 5 months. This suggests that the fall will probably be flat economically, but we actually might see a downturn of some sort, hopefully mild, in the new year in 2024. Not good for Canadians because when we ask Canadians whether their finances are better or worse off compared to a year ago, those numbers are also eroding. An increasing number of Canadians are reporting that their personal finances are worse off.
Of course, the Bank of Canada has been raising interest rates to try and keep inflation down, and that's causing some heartache for a lot of Canadians struggling to pay their bills at the grocery store. And all of this puts tremendous pressure on the federal government. How do you think this is playing out in terms of potential election trigger?
Well, the thing is what we've seen in the last few days is Prime Minister Justin Trudeau said maybe he should have moved a little faster on housing. But the reality is the federal government's not responsible for housing. Provinces and municipalities are really in the driver's seat. I think what Canadians want is some type of solution. They want the federal government, provincial government, municipal governments to work together to create more affordable housing so that, people can have a chance to own a home if they decide that they want to own a home. I think this is going to be one of the key battlegrounds. And if you remember, Michael, in the last federal election, homelessness and housing kind of peaked up a little bit in mid-campaign. I think this is going to be more of a focus because you know what? Even if you don't have a mortgage and you're a retired person, you still have to pay for housing. You're probably worried about your kids and grandkids being able to afford housing and being able to pay the bills. So this really cuts across all generations, men, women, different parts of the country, because is there any place in this country where stuff is cheap? I don't know. Anyways, maybe our viewers and listeners will probably chime in on that one.
Nick, I think we're going to leave it there. Good to see you again.
Take it easy.